And welcome back to a new episode of the Penscast Recap Show. We are recording on Sunday, February 11th. We are going to look back at the back to back on Friday and Saturday for the Penguins. They are on the road. And before we get into the games, Snail, not a great weekend for the Penguins after coming back from the long break with a big win. It fell apart this weekend.
I know after that one when spirits were so high. Um, Honestly, it would have been. We were just talking before we hopped on here. If they lost that game in Minnesota on Fleury's thousandth game, I would have been okay with that. Like, come on, like that team was going to do everything they could to get Flowers win. Um, but they beat Winnie. They've shown they can beat Winnipeg, and I was hoping for them to take that game, but yeah, man, a lot. I think it's not just us, but a lot of people are getting fed up with the mediocrity of this team and the disappointing results, and these low scoring one goal games, losing in overtime. It's heartbreaking, man. So all we can do is really move forward. We'll cover these games and hope that this next week they can get back on the winning side of things and start stacking those points.
Absolutely, and I mean, again, now the point we're kind of running out of time. Like it felt like we had all the time in the world, and then you go and lose these two back to back without getting any points out of it, and it kind of is a punch in the gut. But hey, there's still time to rebound. Wrapping up February here, so we'll see how that goes. But we will start our recap here on Friday night. The Penguins are in Minnesota. Of course, the big celebration of one Marc-Andre Fleury. The Penguins presented him with a very, very nice painting to honor his career before the game, or even before, yeah, I mean, earlier in the day, actually. Um, could be the last time the Penguins and Fleury uh, play each other. It very well could be his final start against the Penguins, and he got the most of it on Friday night. The scoring starts in the first period. Matt Boldy, who is having just an absolutely incredible year for the Minnesota Wild, scores on the power play at 12:57 of the first period. Kirill Kaprizov and Brock Faber get the assist on this goal, and that's how it remains until the second period. And the Penguins, there's a pulse with Riley Smith at 2:54 of the second period. He gets his ninth of the year from Evgeny Malkin. It's 1-1. Penguins are back on even terms, but it does not last long. Jonas Brodin gets his second of the year at 6:12 from Boldy and Joel Eriksson Ek. Uh, and it's 2-1 after two periods. Not the position you want to be in, but that deficit does not last long. Sidney Crosby continues his outstanding season, gets his 28th of the year. It's a power play goal on a slick pass from Erik Karlsson. Jake Gensel gets the other assist at 101 in the third, and we are dead even. And at this point, you're kind of hoping the Penguins can get at least 1 point. But Kirill Kaprizov at 9:34 gets his 20th of the season from Zach Bogosian and Jonas Brodin. That turned out to be the game winner. The Penguins tried to review it for the puck going out of play and being missed, but they did not win that challenge. The Wild held on to the goal, the lead, and eventually the win. And the Penguins come out in the short end here. Fleury makes a couple fantastic saves after the Wild take a 3-2 lead to keep the Penguins from evening it up. But the Wild escape with the win, and the Penguins are 1-1 after the long break at this point.
Did you think that puck touched the net?
Um, there wasn't enough. If it would have been, well, I mean, if it had been caught on the ice, it wouldn't have mattered because the play would have been blown dead. I don't think there was enough uh, to overturn it. When you're getting to the point where that was a long, long review, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like at that point you're just looking for something on the slow mo to say it was no goal. So I had if I was if the roles were reversed and the Penguins were the ones scoring the goal and the goal would have been taken away, I would have been pretty angry. So I kind of looked at it that way. That review took so long. At that point, there's nothing there that's conclusive. You got to let it stand.
So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think ultimately, what you after a game like that, where a call like that almost determines the outcome, you have to be a better team than let that call to sink your ship. I think
Yeah.
uh, there's enough talent on this team. We say it all the time that, like, this team is built for being down by one late in the third to be able to come back and tie it. You know what I mean? Like, they're able to load up on D and offense. But that play, did you watch much of the playoffs last spring?
Yeah, I watched a good bit.
There was a Kings game
Yeah, I
with
know which one you're talking about.
Sean Dursey. I think it was, or no, Gabe Velarde, and it was the same exact. They took just as long to review it, and they didn't overturn that one. And
It
I
just,
thought
yeah.
that one, I remember there was even more of a case that it touched the net, and so the writing was on the wall. But one thing that the announcers, not the announcers, the Jay Telestration guys, Matt
Yeah.
Bartkowski after the game, love, by the way, that Matt Bartkowski is on. Matt Bartkowski, good Pennsylvania kid, right? He's from
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Yeah, he's from Pittsburgh.
So I love that he's on, but they were talking about it, and I really liked what he said, that when all five players like react or more, when all the players react on the ice, that usually means something happened. Now,
Yeah.
I know that there's the argument, like, if there was a penalty, of course everyone's going to be barking for a penalty, even if it's maybe in the gray. But I liked what he said, because that's kind of the way I believe, as someone who's played sports. It's like you're not always trying to like win a ref over. Sometimes things happen and you just automatically react. And so when I saw the slow-mo of the team reacting, I was like, that probably touched the net. But then again, like I said, there was a similar situation in the spring last year with the Kings, and you got to be a better team than letting one missed call completely sink your ship and
Yeah, I
ruin
mean,
your
if it's
chances
a
of winning.
blatant, do you remember? I think it was during the 19 finals. There was like badly missed high sticking penalty, or not penalty, high sticking play on the puck. I think it was the Bruins and the Blues in the final. That led immediately to like a game winning overtime goal. Um,
Yeah.
and like that, I mean, that was like explicitly a missed bad call. Like the grazing of the net, I mean, that is so razor thin.
Yeah.
And that netting is so loose that, I mean,
I mean, you could
theoretically,
fart and it would
yeah,
ripple.
theoretically, somebody touching the glass could make that net shake, or even the puck. Just, I mean, the puck would generate some kind of wind when it flies by. It could knock it. I don't. Yeah, to me, that was not a throw a remote through the TV kind of bad call loss. Like that is a okay. We don't agree with the call. We have to shake it off. Be better. We have 10 minutes left to get a goal. And credit the Penguins, they did push back. They had chances to tie that game, and credit to Fleury, his night, he wanted to show out again.
Oh, he showed out.
He definitely picks it up a little bit when he's playing the Penguins. And I don't think it's any kind of resentment or anything. I think it's more of a friendly thing with Crosby, Malkin, Letang, those guys that he's been there with, that he was there with for 15 years. So credit him for that. And again, that was a game where the chances were there, you just didn't convert, and sometimes the opposing goalie is just better, and the effort was there, but the effort was not there the next night. But we'll talk about that in a second. But I mean, that call alone, I can't sit here and um, wax poetic about that being just a backbreaking call. That is, again, I don't mind the challenge. I think it's worth a shot at that point, but you have enough that you can shake that off and fight back and try to tie that game.
Did the Kirill goal come on the power play after they challenged, or did it?
No, the Kirill
No.
goal, they
Okay.
got a power play out of it because of the roll, but no, they
Okay.
Kaprizov scored. Each team had a power play in this game, power play goal, but the Kaprizov game winner ended up being just a regular even strength goal.
The last thing I want to say is, when you say like Flower really, he showed out against the Penguins, dude. You don't think there's a? I mean, we all know Flower is just a beauty. He's just like one of the nicest characters in the sport. A fan favorite everywhere he goes. But you don't think he likes to shove it up the Penguins, you know what, when they play? And he's like, oh, I see you, I see Sid Malkin, and Letang hanging out still with their contracts, and I was the one who went to Vegas in the expansion. He had success. It's not like they shipped him to the Atlanta Thrashers or the East Coast.
Yeah.
But you don't think he loves to just like really be like, yeah, I still got it, boys. Like I could be, I think there has to be. He's a competitive guy. Part of me thinks that has to be the case to a
Oh,
certain
absolutely.
degree.
Absolutely. And again, he knows it may be the last time he gets to do this, and he's going to go out there and enjoy. Again, the guy, I mean, he's really playing with house money at this point. He's done literally everything. He has 3 Stanley Cups. He has a Vezina, second most all-time wins. He's a very good chance he's the last goaltender that ever plays 1,000 games. I mean, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Why not go out and show out and beat your former team? If that is the last time, you always can hang your cap on that when you guys get together 10, 15 years down the road to think back and relive the memories. Hey, you remember that time that we celebrated my career and I ended up beating you guys, stuff like that. And yeah.
Oh yeah, that'll be penciled in every time it's brought up. Remember the 1,000th game and I played you guys and
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, the Penguins lose that game 3-2. Not really too much to write home about it overall. I mean, a disappointing result, but again, those games happen. You have a chance to bounce back 24 hours later, and they did not do that.
Quickly,
They go to
Robbie, sorry to interrupt, but
oh no, you're good.
The last thing I'll say about that Minnesota game is that pass from Erik Karlsson to Crosby. Dude,
it's not. Yeah.
The Crosby goal, like that could be the statue, like that of him down on one knee right next to the net, just redirecting some. It's not it's not a bad pass. Erik Karlsson had that thing on a rope.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that could be like the statue, I think, is him down on one knee like that.
Yeah, I mean, he scored multiple goals like that just this season.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just no one's ever been able to do it like that, and no one's going to be able to do it like that again. It's just he's unbelievable in that kind of like if you just took the blue crease and just like expanded it like you do a picture with just pull a corner like that is his like
that's his office.
That's his most that's where he's at his most deadly because you never know like a shot you can be planning for a shot to go wide and you just next thing you know it's off his stick and behind you before you can even react, and for a goaltender that has to be absolutely just one of the most maddening, frustrating things to possibly face. So
it's like a ping pong paddle. He just angles his flat little blade at a pass that's way wide, and it just ricochets, top bunk. It's crazy, but I just thought that was such a beautiful picturesque goal by Sid. With all the struggling woes of the Penguins, which actually makes this almost harder to enjoy, Sid just having this season is such a bright spot right now. I mean, the way you want to talk about Fleury showing out at his 36-year-old season this year. He's just having he looks he looks like 2006 Sid at times, and it's so fun to watch.
Absolutely, just a freak show of an athlete, and that it comes from being so obsessive with improving your game that little stuff like that is what sets you apart.
Totally.
All right, so Penguins lose 3-2 to the Wild. The very next night, Saturday night, February 10th, they head to Winnipeg, the team they just dusted 3-0 a few days ago. It was a different story on this night. The scoring here real quick, 10-20 into the first period, Mark Scheifele gets his 15th of the year from Nikolai Ehlers. It's 1-0, and then about 5 minutes later, Nito Niederreiter gets his 13th of the year from Nate Schmidt and Logan Stanley. The Penguins flat out of the gate in this game, just an abysmal start to this game. They do get one back at 14:08 the second period. Brian Rust gets his 13th of the year from Carlson and Graves. And the Penguins, after that first 20, did show life. They did fight back. They did start to develop chances. But against a guy like Hellebuck, you're not going to get him twice in a week. You're not going to get a chance to really spoil his season that quickly. The power play falters again. The Penguins ultimately cannot find a response in the third period again to come back, and they fall 2-1. They drop both of these games. And this one, I would say was much more disheartening than the Friday night game because it felt like this team was flat from puck drop and just, I mean, they did recover in the second and third periods, but again, you got to play a full 60, and playing just 40 is not good enough. The Penguins, again, you give up 2 in the first 40, and it's just a fight back, especially against a goalie like Hellebuck.
Dude, and Jari, I was so pissed. Like Jari played an outstanding game. They wasted a great effort. Even when the Penguins had nothing going and they were flat, he's the only one on the ice battling, it seemed. I mean, you got Sid's line, who's always chugging at 100%, and then there's Jari, and it just, nothing pisses me off more. A wise man once told me, the older you get, you never waste a fart. I say the older you get, you never waste a Jari start, dude. Because this team, like, I don't know. It just pisses me off. Like, it just really fires me up. I was so down on Jari at the beginning of the year, and he's battling in there, flopping, swimming around in net. And this team just lets this Winnipeg Jets team, like, they're getting to the middle, they're getting to the net, they're having no issue entering the zone. It just is a walk in the park, it seems, for that team at times to get into the like the nitty gritty areas, the high danger chances and the Penguins, they can't do the same. All of a sudden, they're the 90 Devils, like the Winnipeg Jet. A lot of teams make the Penguins look like, I don't know. I get fired up about this stuff, Robbie, as you know, but what I'm trying to say is it's just sometimes it seems that the Penguins structure, it's just so loose and easy for these other teams to just really get in and cause some havoc and get these high danger chances. And for the Penguins going the other way, it seems like they need to move heaven and earth just to get a high danger opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, wasting consistently, not just this game, but consistently wasting what they're getting out of Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic should be a tantamount to like treason. It is,
treason,
it is so,
yes.
it is so frustrating that we sat here for like the past 2 or 3 years, always saying like, man, the Penguins could just get some goaltending. The Penguins have the answer to goal. I mean, we can argue about some of the work Dubas did this offseason, but Tristan Jarry has been one of the better moves, and it's not even really close. Outside of that and Carlson have been the 2 best moves you can argue he's made, having that faith in Tristan Jarry, and the Penguins just are wasting it. Just waste because they
pissing it away. They're pissing it away.
Can absolutely do nothing on the offensive end on these nights. Like one goal, it's too much to ask your goalie. Again, this is the league leader in shutouts. A guy that shut out this team earlier this week, 5 days ago. You can't just consistently ask this guy to go out and get you a shutout every night. He stopped 29 of 31 shots. He had a .935 save percentage. He was, for goodness sakes, the 3rd star of the game. And he was a star over the 2 goal scorers in this game. It's maddeningly frustrating. And they're just completely wasting what is a career season from Tristan Jarry, and on the back end, or in the backup role, Alex Nedeljkovic as well.
Oh, dude, Nedeljkovic, he's you talked about good signings by Dubas. You know, the goaltending was, for a team that's looking to contend and get back into the playoffs, I think some of us were skeptical at the Jarry was potentially maybe the best option out there. Nedeljkovic kind of, there's 2 sides to that coin. He seemed like a decent guy, a decent starting guy over in Carolina, but then in Detroit had a rough year or two. And they're like one of the better I think the statistics, the analytics would say that the Penguins have one of the better goaltending tandems in the league. Bright spot for Dubas, but then you have this team. And you know what? Sometimes I don't know what it is, Robbie. I've had a little bit more time since you started talking to gather my thoughts. I almost had a stroke about 15, about 3 minutes ago. So, it's just, I don't know what it is watching this team, dude. But sometimes it's just, I don't know if it's the coaching. I don't know if it's the systems. I don't know if it's players not able to buy in to Sullivan's system and Vellucci's system and Reardon's system. I don't know if it's the personnel. I swear, sometimes though the Penguins in recent years, some of these guys they get rid of a depth guy and say, oh, this guy can't play hockey, and then they go in a new circumstance that, like, Daniel Sprong couldn't play for the Penguins. Now he's like he's on pace for another 20-goal year with as a third liner. I'm thinking about some of these guys. Like, I think a lot of teams would love to have Noel Acciari on their team. I think a lot of these teams would love a Drew O'Connor or a Lars Eller. It's just, what is it that's not clicking for these guys and why are they not able to mesh and do, I don't know, the right things out there? Why are they not harder to play against is what I'm asking here. Because some of these nights, the most frustrating thing is it just seems like it's a walk in the park for some of these teams to come into Pittsburgh's barn, or when Pittsburgh's in other arenas, and it seems like a walk in the park for these teams to have their way with the Penguins. I don't know if it's a lack of I'm always harping on the grit. I'm always in the group chat. It's they need a defenseman that can punch a guy in the head and say, come near this crease, I'm going to get you. I don't even know if that's necessarily what they actually need, but I'd like to see a little bit of pushback and a little bit of like frustration, a pulse. Sometimes the Penguins look like they don't have a pulse or a heartbeat out there, and I think that drives me crazy as well. Where's the incentive to win? Sid's out there doing everything he can to try to, like, drag this team into the playoffs and get the Penguins on the board at times. I don't know what it is. Is it the personnel? Is it the system? Is it the coaching? But the one thing I can say for sure, Robbie, is that the goaltending is not the problem.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, at this point, it kind of feels kind of repetitive. It's just, we keep saying the same things every episode. Every episode, it's the power play. It's they can't score. The goaltending's fine. It's their it was their biggest question, but they got the most complete answer out of that. And it just, I don't know, man. Same thing we talk about every recap, every mailbag. It seems like every question surrounds that. And I mean, I don't know what more there is to really say about it. The Penguins lose both this weekend. You have the rest of February. And a couple games in March until the deadline. So again, a lot of questions will be answered in the coming weeks, but all the high we had after Tuesday evaporated rather quickly after consecutive losses this weekend.
Yes, I almost can't listen to the post game when they're talking to Sullivan anymore. When they're talking to the guys, like Sully, I tip my hat to him. 2 cups back to back. I mean, he's a great coach, a great American coach, one of the best American coaches in the game. But there's something wrong with this team, man. There's something wrong with this team, and sometimes I hear him say this line where he just says, "We like when they have a good game." He's like, "This is the team we are." But then when you have more mediocre games and games where you absolutely soil yourselves, I have a hard time being convinced that your team is those few bright spots every so often. And I think this is more a mediocre team. They're meddling in the mediocrity in the middle of the pack. And going forward, it's like, I mean, I think we're going to have a big Mile and Kyle shoes coming up in the next few weeks. But going forward, I think that this team just has to play better and I wouldn't be surprised if Dubas is more on the towing the line of selling come the deadline, maybe getting rid of a few pieces. But going forward, what's something that you would like to see, Robbie, go from this team? What do they need a player? Do they need a jump start? Do they need a shakeup in the lineup? Do they need a big trade that kind of wakes everybody up? Does a coach need to be fired, or is this do they just stand pat and kind of ride off into maybe an underwhelming season?
Well, it's tough to rework an entire roster in a season, so you're not going to get a full roster overhaul by the trade deadline. It's just not going to happen. There's too many moving parts and stuff like that it's just going to be too difficult to do all that. As for who I'd like to see moved out, I think there's a market for Riley Smith. I think the market might be bigger than people lead on, because again, a guy that kind of plays a game that a lot of teams like, He has a Stanley Cup pedigree, has the experience. So I think there's definitely a market out there for Riley Smith. And it does, again, you don't need to um, look for, I mean, blockbusters. There's nothing the Penguins have that's going to, or the Penguins are definitely, they don't have any pieces to um, pull off a blockbuster, and they're not really in a position to pull off a full on sell, like a Hossa trade or something like that, where you're full on sell mode for a blockbuster. But um, again, so much can change between now and the trade deadline with the games the Penguins have coming up that it's hard to say what exactly the Penguins will do. But what do they need? They need, at the very least, they need a guy who can just find a way to put the puck in the net. Just anybody that can put the puck, like
My thoughts is an automatic goal scorer.
yeah. Again, nothing's automatic. I'm not saying you need like prime Ovechkin, but like you need like just somebody that's not afraid to score, like that can score. That just
Tarasenko, Phil Kessel.
Yeah, I don't know about Kessel at this point, but Tarasenko's a guy. At this point, I mean, he's been out of the league. I don't know what the conditioning's like at this point.
The conditioning has never been there for him. He's an automatic 30-goal guy for a lot of his career. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, the Tarasenko is very intriguing to me. Though I think if it comes to that point in about 4 weeks, that Tarasenko could be a very hot commodity, as in people or some teams are willing to pay a very significant price for Vladimir Tarasenko, that the Penguins are in the position that I wouldn't necessarily want them to pay that much for Tarasenko given their standing. A lot of other teams I think would be willing to pay a lot of money, because I've seen stuff thrown, like Sean Monahan brought in a first-round draft pick.
That's crazy.
Sean Monahan is not worth a first-round draft pick. Let's be real here. This is ridiculous.
Maybe like 6 years ago.
Well, 6 years ago, he would probably been worth multiple first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the trade deadline, you can get some insane stuff that happens because one team overpays for one player, and then everybody else, it just sets a market for overpaying. And I don't want the Penguins to do that, because this team needs a lot more than what you're going to get at a trade deadline to be a true contender. So don't sell the farm for a guy, just a rental. Now, if they want to look at a guy like Jacob Chikrin and make a deal work out, I'm completely fine with that. If Ryan Graves would decide that he wants to actually be a hockey player for the final 30 games of the season, that would be bigger than any trade the Penguins could make.
You know what I was thinking, Robbie, regarding Graves is Tampa just lost that Sergachev, and I think he had an $8 million cap hit. Unless they're going to go really big game hunting, I'm wondering if Dubas picks up the phone and calls Julian Breezewa over there in Tampa and says, hey, I got a big defenseman. You guys, Tampa, you love your big defenseman. I got a guy. Maybe your guys' culture will wake him up a little bit. Maybe they wheel and deal a Riley Smith package with Ryan Graves, and they bring over a Tanner Jeannot and, I don't know, throw in something else for you know what I'm saying?
I mean, if Kyle Dubas can find a way to fix that mistake of Ryan Graves, I'm completely fine with, I would be completely fine with that. I think I'd rather keep Riley Smith, and if you could package Raquel, and
yeah, Raquel too. I'm fine.
Raquel and Graves, and getting those again, we're kind of wish casting because that would be an insane trade to get those two lengthy contracts off the books. I'd be fine with that, and even if you trade Riley Smith later, I'm chill with that too, because getting Raquel off the books and Graves off the books suddenly makes re-signing Jake Gensel much easier as well. Still don't think, regardless of the situation, still don't see Gensel on the market unless somebody would come in with an absolutely insane trade offer. And I think it all boils down to whether or not he wants to remain in Pittsburgh as well. So that's a conversation for another time. But yeah, if you can find a way to get Ryan Graves, or somehow get Ryan Graves to remember how to play hockey like he did last year, that's huge. Again, there's not one player out there, though, that I think they're going to get that's going to make them a sudden contender.
I mean, Ryan Graves, if you look back, Colorado Stanley Cup contender, like perennially. Smell you later. Wanted nothing to do with him. New Jersey Devils had a chance to re-sign him. No, no, thank you. Penguins, Dubas. Maybe he thought. Who knows what he was thinking? Back then, it didn't look too bad. I'm like, oh yeah, big, lanky defenseman.
Yeah,
But he just plays, like a high school soccer player out there. He does not play like a 6'5" lumbering defenseman.
correct.
So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens here. But dude, Robbie, I think everyone can agree that something needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, and it needs to happen fast.
Even just a
Um,
shakeup, not like a blockbuster. I'm not saying go get some. It doesn't need to be an Eric Carlson trade. Like just a different look, a different kind of player slotting in, someone with a little incentive to win. Go pick at a carcass of a team and find one guy that's giving it his all every game in like a market that's not going anywhere for a few years, and give him an opportunity and say we need a push. Bring something to this team. Bring a heartbeat. I don't know, something. We need to get on the phone with Dubas.
Absolutely agreed. So looking forward or looking ahead to next week, it's a quiet week mostly for the Penguins, but there is a back-to-back involved. They are off until Wednesday the 14th, where they will be taking on the Florida Panthers back at home. It feels like they've been playing the Panthers a bunch recently. They did play them at the end of last month, but they get the Florida Panthers on Wednesday night at PPG Paints Arena, and then they are back on a plane immediately for a game on the 15th. The next night, they are flying to the Windy City of Chicago for a meeting with the Blackhawks. The Bedard's Blackhawks, and truly a team that is done trying this year. The only thing they are trying to do is lose. So I look forward to the 1-0 shutout for the Blackhawks, while the Penguins have like 45 shots. Um, and they score from like center ice or something like that in like the final 3 minutes. But then that Blackhawks game leads into the 18th next Sunday, which is the jersey retirement of one Yaromir Yager. So we'll talk about more about that
Can we
later in
sign
the.
him to a 1 day
I might
contract?
have to.
Because, like, dude, I'll put him on the wing. That dude still has a desire to play and win.
Yeah,
A
very few
big
people
body.
have. Yeah, very few people that have a desire to play that late in your career. But again, you got to love it to play that long. And hey, might as well give it a shot. It can't get any worse than what it is.
I'll take him over about 65% of the Penguins roster right now, Robbie. I'll be honest with you.
Absolutely. So Penguins are off until Wednesday, wherein they face the Panthers, the front end of a back to back, the Blackhawks the next night. So that's all I got. Mailbags coming your way this week. There will be more recaps at some point as well with these games this week. So stay tuned for that. Mailbag part one, if they're assuming there's going to be two parts again, will be recorded on Monday and sometime after that. So keep an eye out for that. I actually will look real quick and see what we are looking at mailbag wise this week. Um, there's 20 questions right now, so probably a two-parter again. We'll see how that all goes. But Snail, I'll hand it over to you to wrap it up. Good talking to you guys again, and we'll talk to you later in the week. Snail, the floor is yours.
I just have one thing to say. I was having an aneurysm when I was trying to get this out of my mouth, and I will reiterate it again. Robbie, get the t-shirts made. Never trust a fart. Never waste a Tristan Jarry start.
That is very good. Very
You,
good.
you heard it here first. Robbie, like I said, get the t-shirts made. We'll
All
talk to you
right.
guys later. Thank you for listening.